Hey there. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the Canadian Food Guide for 2019 and my thoughts and recommendations on how you can be healthy by avoiding listening to it in 2019. So you don't have to be Canadian to benefit from this video or learn anything of value, but if you are Canadian, you're probably familiar with this food guide. So, when it comes to the actual food guide itself, I obviously have some problems with it. I'm going to recommend some things in this video, but all of my recommendations here are solely to make you think. And, I'm never trying to impose my beliefs on you. This is all just food for thought so you can figure out what's best for you. Everybody obviously has individual differences, but on a large scale, lots of things are beneficial for most humans. So, last little preface is that, I'm all about open discussion. My study in school was philosophy, and I love just working towards educating all of us so we can all learn, so I can learn from you guys in the comments, and we can facilitate a healthy discussion here. So be nice to the people in the comments, even if you disagree with them or me. Be nice to me in the comments if you disagree with me, and just leave your responses, and I can happily address them and, try to teach us both something or learn from you guys as well. So all about the happy, healthy discussion, and let's keep it friendly and keep it civil. So I'm going to try to be very objective here, but I'll start off by reading the actual recommendations of the food guide itself. So what the Canadian Food Guide in 2019 recommends is, and I'm quoting here, have plenty of vegetables and fruits, eat protein foods, right? No specific recommendation on how much. Make water your drink of choice. Brilliant. And choose whole grain foods. So right away, on a macro level, there's a high recommendation for carbohydrates and some sort of recommendation for proteins and water. Obviously, you can do a carbohydrate-based diet as much as you like if that's your thing. I'm never trying to only appeal to people who want to do a keto diet. I just love that diet, and I do it for about half the year. So I have a balance myself of keto dieting and carb dieting, and there's always a balance, different balances for different people. However, the facts of what's healthy about both approaches are, pretty clear. But again, we're here for discussion. So on a macro level, high recommendations for carbs, right? Some sort of recommendation for processed carbs, right? High grains, complex carbs. And, of course, there's a recommendation for fruits and vegetables, but no mention of fats, right? No mention of fats at all. And obviously, we're looking for some sort of balance here. For me, whenever I talk about keto diet, you're not going to be getting any carbs, so there's no balance in that respect. However, your body doesn't need carbs necessarily. It can produce carbohydrates from its own body, enough that it needs. However, when there's no fats, that's a big problem for your body because you need essential fatty acids and essential amino acids, so essential fats and essential proteins. And when you're not getting one of those, that's a big problem for your diet. It's when you see, imagine as if the diet had recommended no proteins, right? You'd kind of be like, yeah, big problem. That's the same attitude you should have to the lack of mention of any fats. And a lot of these dietary recommendations like to leave out fats because that favors the food industry, right? Keeping you on a blood sugar loop all the time is going to keep you coming back to the grocery store and buying more processed sugars, which are easy to manufacture, and more carbohydrate-based foods, which are high margin and, going to keep you coming back because you're hungry all the time from the constant blood sugar spikes, right? So I'm not fully accusing this diet of benefiting food industries, but it definitely seems like something that would benefit them. And high amounts of vegetables and fruits, right? I'm a fan of balancing out your protein intake, your fat intake, and your carb intake if you're going to go carbs. If you're not going to go carbs, you don't necessarily need to have those carbs because they're not essential. However, when you do have them, you're going to want a balance of fats so you can get all the fat-soluble vitamins you need, which are so important for your body and play so many roles on a hormonal level for your body that if you omit them, you're going to be really messing up your body. And there's two sides of the coin of that, because When you leave out the fats, you're going to be depleting your body of a lot of fat-soluble vitamins. However, at the same time, when your energy source is only carbohydrates, your body is going to be having much higher blood sugar responses than if you had carbs with a balance of fats and proteins. Because the blood sugar response when you have a mix of macronutrients is weaker than if you just have carbs on their own. So basically what that means is 100 grams of carbs will react more on a blood sugar spiking level than 100 grams of carbs plus a decent amount of fats and proteins. Additionally, you don't want to be mixing high amounts of carbs and proteins. That's kind of what this diet doesn't necessarily recommend high proteins, but it does says eat protein foods, and they make up a third of the plate, well, a quarter of the plate. And high amounts of carbs and high amounts of proteins really can mess around in your stomach, because one takes an acid to digest and one takes a base. And when you have those swirling around in your stomach, that will really do a lot of damage in your digestive over the long scale of your life. And that's actually a very clear-cut fact. You don't want to be having high amounts of carbs and high amounts of protein at the exact same time. That's why when you're having a diet that has carbohydrates for fueling your metabolism, you can totally have high amounts of both carbs and proteins, but you can't be having them at the same time. Another benefit of why the ketogenic diet is useful in that case. So, no fat-soluble vitamins, right? Big role in your body. At the same time, your only energy source is going to be carbs, going to keep you on a blood sugar roller coaster. Complex carbs, which is whole grain, right, as per their recommendation, are going to be high glycemic carbs. They're going to be digesting over the long time in your body, keeping your blood sugars high all the time, keeping your blood sugars always bouncing up and down. And additionally, high amounts of vegetables and high amounts of fruits are going to keep you high in levels of anti-nutrients. So anti-nutrients are typically a term that a lot of keto and low carb people of the YouTube community will throw around kind of to scare you. And I want to be balanced. I want to be objective, right? Like I said, I'm that philosophy background. I want to give you just the facts and you guys can discern for yourself. I'm not going to stretch the truth of anything. And anti-nutrients are not beneficial for your body because they hinder the absorption of nutrients in your body. Anti-nutrients are oxalates, phytates, and lectins. And, in moderate amounts, they're not going to be a problem for your body. A lot of other low-carb people on YouTube will say that they're terrible for your body and you shouldn't eat any plants. And you'll find a lot of people who are kind of preaching that sort of ideology. You don't want to be fear-mongered into thinking that vegetables are bad for you, right? There's a balance. In evolution, humans would eat a balance of animal fats and proteins and a balance of fruits and vegetables and whatever they could scavenge. Obviously, different cultures would have different amounts of that mix, but both would be included for most of the time. But plenty of vegetables and fruits is something that humans would never have had in evolution, right? Think of the timeline of human history, right? Humans on an evolutionary level would never be having high amounts of vegetables and fruits. It just wouldn't make sense. Fruits and vegetables are only available half of the year because the winter would basically knock out any crops and vegetation, and depending on what parts of the world you're looking at. And also because it would just be whatever they could scavenge, right? Agricultural revolution wasn't up until a couple hundred years ago, right? Recently is when we were consuming high amounts of grains, high amounts of vegetables and fruits. Before then, humans wouldn't be having large amounts of those foods on their plate. So when it comes to what you should eat, right, obviously a balance is not going to be a problem for you. Obviously these anti-nutrients, right, which aren't great in high amounts, are not going to be a problem if you have a balance, right? Especially because a lot of other channels on YouTube, especially if they're, more plant-based recommendations, will say that they've had some good arguments on, basically how these plant foods with anti-nutrients, there are some ways to work around them, right? There are, which could be, including more vitamin C at the same time you're consuming these plant foods. But that's not really practical to be, looking for these workarounds and these loopholes to just be throwing into your diet so you can be allowed to have high amounts of vegetables. Because humans would never be having ridiculously high amounts of vegetables, right? Keep a balance and you're good. You can cut them out if you like. Probably not the best decision in terms of, for everybody, right? So having high amounts of those foods is completely impractical. We are running on hardware, the human body, that is millions of years old, and that many years of evolution have played into what works for us and what is healthy for humans, right? Humans work on a use it or lose it basis, and whatever we weren't using wouldn't be necessary for our health, right? It's one thing to say that, whatever humans were using is best for us, but it's easier to say that what we weren't using isn't essential, because whatever we're using is what got us forward. Whatever we weren't using on a large scale level isn't necessarily best for everybody, and large amounts of fruits and vegetables and grains are never something that humans would use in the macro, long, big picture of human health. Carbs, however, are a very good energy source in the short term, and that's what carbs are. Carbs were an evolutionary advancement for humans, because whoever found carbs, or whoever found a large amount of fruit in the tribal times, would have ate that, and the reward pathways in their head would have been firing up, because it is such a quick source of energy. And that's why it tastes so good, why it results in such a dopamine response on the reward pathways in the human body, because that's going to keep you coming back and saying, oh my goodness, that this is just quick energy right here. Like I said, we're using very old hardware. Our body is still concerned about living to see tomorrow. It's concerned about survival, and quick energy is always going to produce a high amount of reward response in the body, because it's going to say to your body, it's basically like insurance, that hey, even if I don't have energy tomorrow, I can store some of this energy on my body as fat. And that's what fat is. Fat is stored energy for your body, and that's the way your body looks at it. Your body looks at it like it's so happy when you eat a carb source, because worst case scenario, if you don't have any food for a week after this, you could store that energy in your body, right? And that's kind of the whole role of carbs on an evolutionary level. They are an advancement. They're not entirely necessary, right? In moderate amounts, they're very beneficial, and that's why it's totally fine to have a carbohydrate-based diet that gets decent sources of carbs, but isn't overdoing it. Overdoing it and omitting fats at the same time is going to basically, like I said, keep you on that blood sugar roller coaster, keep you on a nutrient deficient level, because you're not getting fat soluble vitamins, and any vitamins you're getting are going to be conflicting with those anti-nutrients if you're eating high amounts of vegetables. And basically, at the same time, consuming high protein and high carbs at the same time is going to be throwing your gut into a, I guess I'll say frenzy. I've never used that word, but frenzy, because your gut is just going to be, your whole body is going to be dealing with these reactions that are not healthy at all. And it seems like a simple thing to just say, oh, eat healthy vegetables, eat healthy proteins, and eat complex carbs, right? That recommendation is there's so many ripple effects that I just mentioned that conflict with each other, that you really don't want to be doing that sort of diet long term. And obviously the food industry is benefiting a lot from this type of diet, right? As I mentioned before. But the fact that they keep changing these food recommendations doesn't mean that what's healthy is changing. It just means that what is supposed to be mainstream knowledge of what is healthy is changing, because it depends on the needs of whoever is in major control of these food outlets, of what's accessible. And so yeah, the blood sugar loop, the lack of nutrients, the anti-nutrients, which again, because I'm trying to be objective, the anti-nutrients are only problematic in high amounts, right? Small amounts are never going to be a large problem for your body, and a balance, right? Balance is key. Seems easy to say. I've chirped that phrase in the past because it's too much of a buzz phrase, right? A buzzword. But if you're going to be eating a carbohydrate-based diet, keep a balance of fats, keep a balance of proteins and carbs, and do it smart, do it strategic. Don't have your large amounts of proteins and carbs at the same time. It's going to be a problem. Don't have, shitloads of foods, more than humans would have been eating of a certain variety of in evolution, right? Think about these things on an evolutionary level. Think about what the human body was using, right? And what it wasn't using. And use that to inform you, right? Always question advice and question my advice, right? Do research and verify that what I'm saying makes sense, or that it doesn't make sense, right? If there's something you don't agree on, and if there is something you don't agree on, or do agree on. Let me know. Like I said, be nice to everybody in the comments, be nice to me, and you know, I'll show the same respect for you guys, and we can all learn something of benefit here. So that was my video on the Canadian Food Guide for 2019. Let me know your thoughts, you know, let me know your concerns, and show me anything else you'd like me to talk about. Lead me to whatever you'd like to hear my opinions on. And even if you don't leave anything, I'm still going to make lots of other videos on nutrition, fitness, bodybuilding, and a bunch of other topics. So in case you don't know who I am, Anthony Romano, and, you know, subscribe to my videos if you like them, like my videos if you like them. You can find me anywhere else in the description below. Peace.